Well, to continue the conversation, we're now joined by Liberal MP Anthony Housefather. Anthony, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Listen, the vast majority of your caucus, your government, voted in favor of this compromise resolution. You did not. Why?
Well, because I was against it. I didn't agree with the original motion. I thought it was a horrendous original motion, which was very much anti-Israel. And then while the amendments made it better, I still didn't agree with the amended version. And I didn't understand why we would try to amend a horrible motion. When you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. There was no need to amend it. We should have just voted against it. It was not consistent with liberal values and liberal policy. And so they then brought in at the very last minute 14 very substantive amendments to the original motion that no parliamentarian had a chance to even look at for more than 5 minutes before the vote happened. So I didn't agree with any of it.
Okay, and you use the descriptor anti-Israel, although when you go through this compromise, it does include a recognition of Israel's right to defend itself. It also calls on Hamas to surrender. How does that not address at least some of your concerns and lead you to call it anti-Israel?
I said the original motion from the NDP was anti-Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But the motion was then amended, but the original motion was anti-Israel. Why are you amending it? Vote against it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now,
there was no need. We normally don't start amending NDP Opposition Day motions. That is not the normal practice. The normal practice is if the Liberal caucus and government don't agree with the wording of the motion as proposed, the answer is you vote against it. You don't spend days negotiating different language with the NDP. And again, there was 2 weeks, a 2 week period where, but between the time that we knew this motion was coming on the Monday and what happened, and then the amendments were shown to people 5 minutes before the vote.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel then about your government colleagues who voted for this compromise resolution?
Well, how do I feel about it? I think most of my colleagues are not as invested in the issue as I am, and others would have voted for the original motion. We have a diversity of views. My issue is not with my colleagues. My colleagues have every right, like I do, to express themselves. My issue is with the government and how the government handled it, not with my Liberal colleagues.
So how the government handled it. So are you then considering your own place in that government now then?
Well, what I'm saying is that I'm certainly in a reflective period right now. I feel that I need to think about things after having felt very isolated yesterday. I had very much made it clear that my position was we should vote against this motion, that it would be wrong for me to do anything other than that. When I ran in the 2015, 2019 elections, 2021, one of the core issues in my riding is support for Israel. The Prime Minister was at a synagogue in my riding in 2015 where he stated that there would be no daylight between our position and the Conservative Party position on Israel, except we wouldn't make it into a wedge issue in Canada's Jewish community. And I think we held to that for the first 6 or 7 years that I was in office. But since October the 7th, it's clear that our position is not consistent anymore with the Conservative position. They voted against it. Our position is consistent now with the NDP position. That is just horrendous, because the NDP has turned into an anti-Israel party. And yes, the NDP accepted amendments that made the motion better, but it still calls on a weapons, a ban on shipping non-lethal weapons to Israel at a time when Israel is at war. If the whole world did that, then Hamas and Hezbollah that are firing missiles into Israel, armed by Iran from the north and the south, would be free to fire weapons into Israel, and Israel couldn't respond. You can't say Israel has a right to self-defense, but no, you can't ship them anything. And there are a number of things in the resolution which basically equated the democratic state of Israel with the terrorist organization Hamas, at least how the original resolution was drafted. You can't just make moral equivalencies where there are none. Israel was attacked on October the 7th, and you're either a friend of Israel or you're not a friend of Israel.
Mm-hmm. As you're talking, I do wonder, and I appreciate this as a moment of reflection, would you cross the floor to join the Conservatives over this issue?
And I'm in a period of reflection. All options to me are on the table. I mean, I could stay where I am. I could think of crossing the floor. I don't know. I need to reflect. And the first reflection is not about whether I cross the floor or whether I stay. It's, do I feel comfortable and at home anymore in my caucus, in my party, given the drift on this issue, which is of fundamental importance to me. I had a similar issue last year with the language bill, where, I felt that references to Quebec's Charter of the French language that used the notwithstanding clause preemptively to remove rights was completely unacceptable in a federal bill. And I was on my own in the House of Commons voting against it. And there's times that you have reflective periods, and this is certainly one of them.
Anthony Housefather, I appreciate you speaking with us this evening. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Michael. Have a good day.